All right, hi guys. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be solving and graphing absolute value inequalities. So a couple things to remember is that if you have a less than or greater than symbol, remember that when you go to graph, it's an open circle. And then if it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, it's going to be a closed circle. Also remember when we graphed compound inequalities, that if it was a less than or equal to, it was an and statement. So that means you shade it in the middle. It's in between this and this, okay? And then if it was a greater than symbol or a greater than or equal to symbol, then it was an or statement and it was shaded on the outside, kind of like you row a boat. Oars, you use oars to row a boat, so we kind of think of going on the outside, right? All right, so here are your steps that you're going to do to solve these questions. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to isolate the absolute value, meaning get the absolute value by itself on its own side of the inequality. You're going to write the problem out twice. The left-hand side stays the same. The right-hand problem side, you're going to flip that inequality symbol, and then you're also going to switch the number after the inequality to its opposite. So if it was a positive 5, it's going to change to a negative 5. Remember to never mess with the stuff on the inside of the inequality symbols. That's huge. Then you're going to solve both inequalities. And then from there, you're going to graph. But remember, if it was an and or an or, so that way at the very end, if when you go to graph, you see your graph, does it make sense? Does it match the inequality symbol? Okay, so here we go with some examples. Let's start with number 1. So the first thing we want to do is we want to check our steps. So we want to isolate the absolute value. It is isolated by itself. It has nothing on the outside of the absolute value. So that step is done. Step 2, we're going to write the problem out twice. So the first time I write it out on the left-hand side, I write it out exactly the same. X minus 4 is less than or equal to 5. Then on the right-hand side, you're going to write out the X minus 4, and you're going to flip that inequality symbol and then change the number to the opposite. So it was a positive 5, it's going to change to a negative 5. So now you have the problem written out twice. Then you're going to solve both inequalities. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's start with this left-hand side. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 4 to both sides of the inequality. I'm left with X is less than or equal to 9. There's the first part of my answer. Let's go ahead and do the second problem. I'm going to add 4. These cancel out. I get X is greater than or equal to negative 1. Then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to my steps and check. So I solve. So step 4, graph. So I like to look at the and check to see if it's going to be an and or an or. So this is a less than symbol. So back up here, less than, it's going to be an and. So when I go to graph, it should be in between when I shade. Okay, so I want to keep that as a mental note here. So let's go ahead. We're going to draw our number line. Remember that you have arrows on either end. I look at my numbers. I have negative 1 and positive 9. So I might put negative 1 here. And then let's accurately place 9. So this would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so 9 and negative 1. Let's start with X is less than or equal to 9. So it is at less than or equal to. So remember, that one is going to be a closed circle on the 9. And then it says X is less than or equal to. So less than numbers would be this way. So I just kind of want to shade this way a little bit. And then this one right here is going to be X is greater than or equal to negative 1. So it also would be a closed circle on the negative 1. It says X is greater than. Well, then greater than numbers are over to the right-hand side of that negative 1. And we definitely did graph this correctly because remember it was a less than symbol, which gives us an and statement, and this is definitely an and statement. All right, let's move on to problem number 2. So on problem number 2, let's start with step 1, isolate the absolute value. Well, the absolute value is not isolated, so we actually have to do that first on this problem. And so to get the absolute value by itself, this is 2 times that, so I'll do the opposite, so I'll divide by 2 on both sides. It leaves me with the absolute value of X plus 5 is greater than 10 divided by 2 would be 5. Okay, so now it's isolated. I can go to step 2. So remember on step 2, I'm going to separate it into its 2 problems. So on the left-hand side, I write it exactly as I see it. By the way, you can drop the absolute value symbols when you go ahead and rewrite it. And then on the right-hand side, when I rewrite it, remember that you flip your inequality symbol and you change the number to its opposite, so it becomes a -5. Remember, never mess with the stuff on the inside of the absolute value. Okay, we're going to go ahead and solve those really quickly. So subtract 5 on both sides. I get x is greater than 0. Go ahead over here, subtract 5. I get x is less than -10. All right, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph. So I'm going to look to see if it's going to be an and or an or so I can make a mental note of that. So I started with a greater than symbol. And remember, greater than gives me an or statement. So when I go to graph, I should be graphing on the outside. Okay, so draw my number line. In this case, I have a -10 and a 0. So -10 would be on the left-hand side. And then when I go to 0, so 9, -9, 0. If I'm going to deal with the 0 first, I'm going to go ahead and it's going to be x is greater than 0. So remember, it's going to be an open circle because it's just plain old greater than. And if x is greater than 0, numbers that are greater than 0 go to the right. Okay, so I'm shading that in. I'm going to go ahead and graph the second one. This is x is less than -10. So again, open circle. And it's going to be less than -10, which less than numbers are to the left. And double check myself, it was an or statement, so I shade on the outside, so we're good there. All right, remember, if you need more help, please go ahead and email me or visit me in office hours, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10:30 to 11. All right, hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you soon.